everybody. So I'm Danielle Veenstra and I lead sustainability for the Almond Board of California. I'm also a third generation almond farmer. We're here today on my family's farm and I'm joined by Josette.
Hi, I'm Josette Lewis, the Chief Scientific Officer for the Almond Board of California. And I oversee scientific research that spans all aspects of growing almonds. Some fun and very interesting research that we'll talk about today on new uses of almond co-products, and also research that supports the health benefits of almond consumption. What I think is really interesting about the Almond Board is that we're entirely funded by almond growers themselves. And worth noting is that over 90% of almond farmers here in California are family-owned farms, just like yours, and 70% of them farm 100 acres or less. There's a lot of small farmers, and you yourself now have your own orchard and represent one of those farmers. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about the qualities of almonds that make them such a popular choice?
Absolutely. And to your point, Josette, my family ticks both of those boxes. The 40 acres, so we're that 100 acres or less, and we're a family farm. My grandpa planted our first orchard in 1965, and like you said, I'm planting my own here coming very soon. But something that no matter what you are as an almond farmer, something that we're really passionate about is growing trees. As you can see, it's really idyllic and it's really lovely. A lot of times we live in our orchards, but we also are really passionate about growing healthy food and a nut that it has so many qualities that people love, that food manufacturers love. There's obviously the nutritional profile of it, the most researched food in the world. So, all the good things that it provides to us in our bodies. But also there's the shelf life of them. So almonds have a 2-year shelf life. I keep them for a bit longer in my freezer. But there's also the versatility. And that's been something that I've gotten to see develop over my lifetime in this industry. From just the almonds that we snack on to flour and butter and milk. And there's so much exciting possibility, both with the nut itself, but also with our co-products. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I actually have with me almonds, so I don't have to get up and pick them off the tree. But this is what they look like, of course, off the tree. And important to note, almonds are a close cousin to peaches. They're actually both prunuses, so both stone fruits. So you have this fuzzy outer hull here, and this is one part of the almond. So if we take that off, you can even if you smell it, it smells very peach-like.
Yeah.
So it has those sugars in it that, like the flesh of the peach that you would normally eat, has some tannins, so it's a bit bitter. We don't eat it traditionally, but we'll talk about how maybe we can. And then, of course, there's the shell. So this would be like the pit of your peach. And if we open that, then, of course, there's
the best part of all.
The best part, the kernel inside. There we go. Yeah. So these are all the things that we grow, of course, the trees themselves, but we have been using these things and put them to use historically for a long time. So we're going to talk about the innovative uses for them, but the traditional uses for them. So you're holding the hulls. I've heard you refer to these as cow candy before. They're actually used 100% in California's dairies. So they're part of the nutrition mix that dairy nutritionists recommend for their cows. So they offset or can offset up to 20% of a dairy cow's ration. That is really important in California because it has water savings associated with it, right? So you don't have to grow 20% of something else. If you were to replace that, say, with alfalfa, that saves 440 billion gallons of water.
That's a lot of water.
A lot of water when we think about growing in a water-limited environment and trying to be part of the solution. So dairy feed, 100%, they're used for that. The shells, a little bit less valuable of a use, but they're used as livestock bedding. So that's important again because you would be growing something to use as livestock bedding, so they get used to that. And of course the kernel we eat, so that one's easy. And then the trees themselves, they have a 25-year lifespan. At the end of that lifespan, traditionally what would happen is the trees would be pulled out, they would get ground up, and then they would go to what are called cogeneration facilities. So it's a way to create electricity. It's a renewable energy source for California's grid. Those have, for a variety of reasons, fallen out of favor and are not as used or available for agriculture. And I know you're going to talk to us a little bit about how they're currently used.
Yeah, so all of those current uses have been backed by research, a lot of good research showing the nutritional benefits of almond hulls. Again, reminder, they're kind of the equivalent to the part of the peach or an apricot that we eat. So a lot of good nutrition in there, currently going to the dairy industry. I think as we've looked as an industry how to continue that zero waste journey to make sure that everything we grow goes to efficient and productive use, one of the really exciting breakthroughs in recent years is a new technique that's actually pioneered in almonds called whole orchard recycling. So you made reference to the fact that the trees used to go into cogen energy production. Here in California, we've upped the requirements for what is considered renewable resources, and particularly moving toward a low carbon fuel system, both for the grid and for transportation. So one really exciting opportunity here with whole orchard recycling is, if you think about the 25-year lifespan of an orchard like this, through those 25 years, those trees are really sequestering carbon as they grow in the same way that a forest does. At the end of the life of an orchard, those trees are ground up, and then that's actually returned into the soil in the area where we're sitting right now. There's no practice in agriculture that puts that much carbon in the soil at any one time. So really a great win for combating climate change. It also has great benefits for the almond grower themselves. So if you plant an orchard after doing whole orchard recycling, that next orchard will have a much higher water use efficiency. So you'll get more crop per drop, and also will have yield advantages. So a great story all around.
So in almond farming, we grow not just the kernel that we eat, we grow these trees up here, and then the hulls and the shells that almonds grow in. And historically, we've taken a zero waste approach to these things, putting them all to good use. But more recently, we set a goal as an industry in 2018 to find optimal uses for these things. So not just putting them to use, but things that have both sustainability and even economic benefits to us as farmers. The way we do that is through research partnerships. We've explored lots of different opportunities, but one of them with this whole tablescape beside me is using hulls as a food ingredient. And so there's opportunities in tea and coffee and nutrition bars and things that have solutions for the food industry as well. It's a really exciting time.
You mentioned earlier that the almond is related to peaches and apricots, and that hull, which maybe doesn't look so appetizing in its dried form, is actually equivalent to the part of a peach or an apricot that we eat. So we have been working with a company called Matson, a food product development company here in California, to look at potential ingredient uses for human food from powdered almond hulls. And we have a lot of great examples here today to try. So not only is it important for us to be able to show that this is a cost-effective ingredient to the food industry, but also that it offers additional benefits. And in particular, there's a lot of nutritional benefits in this hull. Cows are currently taking advantage of that, but maybe people can too. So Matson has shown that by using powdered almond hulls as a food ingredient, it improves the fiber, the mineral content, and almonds hulls also have a lot of phytochemicals that act as antioxidants. So some potentially really important nutritional benefits, not just from the kernel itself, but from the hull as well.
I mean, that makes sense, Josette, because if we think about dairies and how they use feed, they use nutritionists, and they're looking at the profiles of these. So it makes sense that there's some good stuff in it potentially for us too. But of course, we want it to taste good as well. And we talked about earlier how they have tannins in them, they're bitter, but there is an interesting flavor profile to it. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so like a peach or apricot, there's a little fruitiness to it. There's some natural sweetness, a little bit of vanilla notes as well,
even
if you snip it. And it does have a slightly bitter finish to the taste, which actually pairs well with certain applications. So we can think about some of the things that we have here today. One of the really exciting opportunities that Matson prototyped is a nutritional bar. So we're very familiar with almonds as an ingredient, and consumers really recognize the nutritional benefit of an almond. But by using powdered almond hulls as an ingredient in this bar right here, Matson showed that you could get 39% of your daily recommended fiber with only half of the carbohydrates. And as you said, the most important thing is that it tastes good, so maybe give it a try.
And I think this was prototyped similar to like a performance bar, so like something you'd eat going hiking.
I personally think it tastes good, but what do you think?
I love the fruitiness to it. So I hike a lot, and you're eating these for performance. But I think I like the texture of it. There's some of that sweetness to it, the vanilla notes. So I think it's great. So Josette, we talked about how these are pretty tasty. Can you talk about other applications that there might be that takes advantage of the fiber components of the hulls?
Yeah, as we know, most of us, over 90% of us, don't get enough fiber in our diet, less than the recommended daily amount. So another interesting area that Matson prototyped was use of powdered almond hulls as a replacement for flour in baked goods. And they showed that by replacing 5% of the wheat flour with almond hull powder, you could get enough fiber to substantiate a good source of fiber claim on that food product. So a lot of opportunity for food companies to innovate and look in the baked good side of their baked good side of their offerings as well.
That's fantastic. So looking at our tablescape here, another option that Matson explored is using roasted hulls. So if you look at this is our regular hull that just comes off the tree. My understanding is they roasted it like you would roast coffee beans, and then there's some applications for that as well. So can you talk us through what we're seeing here, and let's taste them?
Yeah, so kind of get back again to the flavor profile. A little bit of sweet with a bitter finish is not dissimilar to cocoa or coffee. So by roasting the hulls, they found that you could replace up to 20% of the coffee beans and get a product that in blind taste tests was very positive, and in some levels of roasting, actually the hull coffee combination actually scored higher in those blind taste tests. So a great way to control costs. Coffee prices are very high and can squeeze manufacturers' margins. Also some challenges around climate change and growing coffee. It really requires a very narrow, cooler climate and elevated parts of the world where coffee is grown. And also consumers, we're starting to see a lot of innovation in the coffee beverage type space as consumers are looking to moderate the amount of caffeine. And so by replacing a portion of the beans with roasted almond hulls, you get a really good tasting product with a lower caffeine level. Certainly something that would appeal to me as a consumer. Another way to think about it is 100% roasted hulls makes a really delicious tea type product. So another potential application there. And you can even use hulls as a partial replacement for hops in beer making. So a lot of fun applications and a lot of opportunity to take advantage of both the functional properties of hulls, but particularly the nutritional benefits and the cost as well.
Do you want to give them a try?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a little sip of coffee.
I'm not a coffee drinker as much, so I'm going to go for the tea here.
Great way to start my day.
It has that bitterness for a tea. It has the bitterness that you're used to. But it also has that fruitiness, which, okay, I may be unorthodox with my tea, but I like to do like a regular tea bag and then like a fruit tea with it.
Nice.
So this is like right up my alley. How's the coffee?
It's delicious.
And I think there's that vanilla, it kind of rounds it out.
Yeah,
as well,
and a little bit of
really
the sweetness
nice.
without added sugar.
Very nice.
So a lot of great opportunities. The purpose of the work with Matson is really to just show what's possible, to pique the interest of food companies to think about innovating further with this almond hull as a new ingredient that can add nutritional value as well as some functional properties and cost benefits. So we are pursuing GRAS status for this. So we funded the research to look at the toxicology and allergenicity, and we'll be putting together the dossier to submit to the Food and Drug Administration. And this will open up the door for food companies to really innovate as an ingredient. So if you're at all interested in the research behind this or progress going forward, please get in touch with us, and we're happy to share any and all of the science and the information behind the products that we're talking about today. The other great thing about beyond the nutritional value and the functional properties of use of almond hulls is it really allows a manufacturer to take advantage of the sustainability story of almonds. Almonds are well recognized by consumers as a healthful food product, but it is all now backed by science that it's a low carbon and zero waste food. So great opportunity to pair nutrition with sustainability in using the whole almond product.
Absolutely. Well, Josette, thank you so much for joining me on my family's farm here today. As you can see, there's stuff going on behind us. It's a farm,
working farm,
and we do that. But as we talked about earlier as well, there's so much more to the sustainability story of almonds. We've talked about water savings a little bit, how some of these practices help with that, pollinators. So you know this, but I encourage those viewers watching this to go to almondsustainability.org to learn more about that whole story, because it's not just the zero waste and the upcycling. There's a lot more to it, and there's just so much opportunity for us to innovate and to continue to lead by example in this space. So thank you so much for joining me, and it's been fun.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.